Good evening, friends. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Right. So just want to know about this crowd. Right. Did we meet yesterday? No. I don't think so. Right? First time you are seeing me. Right. Very good. How many of you are preparing for civil service in this crowd? Nobody? Okay. Right. Very good. How many of you are preparing for other competitive examinations? Right. How many of you are exclusively preparing for bank jobs? Nobody is exclusively preparing for bank jobs? Okay, right. Okay. See here. Today what I'll just do, see I am a faculty of geography. Okay. So what I'll do, I know that everybody is not preparing for civil service examination. So what I thought, so any competitive examination, there will be, I call them as what a common area. Right, I thought of teaching only those common areas. So before getting into the common areas of geography, right, first what we'll do, we'll try to understand the nuances of any competitive examination, right? How many of you have already written some competitive examinations? Right, any competitive examinations you have already written? Right, you have some exposure in it? Right, okay. See, if I'm just talking about the different types of examination, what is happening in India. I'm just talking about the competitive examination. Competitive examination in the sense, I'm talking about those examination, writing and qualifying which you can get a job. Okay. So you can classify them into three categories. One, all that examination which is based on aptitude. Okay. I call them as what? General aptitude. Just want to tell you that how many different types of examination are there in this country. Number one, right, examinations which is based on general aptitude, my friend. Right, what is this general aptitude? You heard about aptitude, right? Most of you think that aptitude is mathematics. But just want to tell you that mathematics means, aptitude is not mathematics. Only 20%, right, will be somewhere related to what? Mathematics. The second type of examination, what I will be grouping, I call them as what? General studies or general knowledge, my friend. Right? Examination which is based on general studies and general knowledge. Do you know any such examination which is based on general studies or general knowledge? Any examination? Name it. Any examination. Let it be more interactive in nature, my friend. Right. Any examination you know which is based on general studies or knowledge? Civil service, right? So UPSC itself is not an examination. UPSC is a body or organization which conduct this examination. The name of the examination you call them as what? Civil service exam, right? Apart from civil service, there are plenty of other exams what UPSC conducts. You have heard about CDS, right? Combined Defence Service. Right? Heard about CAPF, Central Armed Police Force, right? These are some of the examinations what UPSC conducts. Okay. And of course, when I talk about the third, right, I would say it is a specialized studies. Right. Examination which is based on specialized studies. For example, when I talk about Indian Engineering Service, right, these are the exams which is based on specialized study. Okay. Now let me tell you, my friend, when I talk about specialized study, these are the examinations which will give you an entry into the technical service. Am I right? But if at all, if you want to get into the general service means any degree is eligible. For specialized studies or examination based on specialized study, they may not go for any degree eligibility. Okay. So say for example, assume, right, they'll be calling only for mechanical engineers, they'll be calling only for what? Electrical engineers. Somewhere I understand that specialization in your graduation is also needed. Okay. So if that is the case, time being we are not interested in the studies. Okay. So let me be binary, I am just talking about those examinations which is based on general aptitude versus general studies. Okay. Now here, when I just talk about the larger gamut method, when I talk about top notch, say for example every department, there is a post, right, I understand this is the maximum direct entry level what I can enter in this department, right? Say for example, even in that case, if you ask me, IB, right, I heard about Intelligence Bureau, right? Very recently they have called for one post. I do not know how many of you have applied for it. Have you heard about this post called as ACI? What is this ACI? Assistant Central Intelligence Officers. Am I right? In the rank of inspector, my friend. So this is the direct, right, entry what you can have, highest direct entry what you can have in the right organization called as NIM. Am I right? So somewhere, if I am just talking about any examination which selects people for the highest direct recruitment, I always believe that is based on what? General studies and general knowledge. When I talk about the lesser exams or lesser post, right, most of the time it is taken with general aptitude. But banking is an exception. For example, when I talk about probationary officers, right, once your probationary period is over, you'll be called as what? Assistant manager. Right, you cannot enter the bank directly above this assistant manager. Right, that is an exception, but if you ask me that what exactly I have to prepare for banking examination, then I would say what? General aptitude. So what we'll do, most of the time, my friend, many examination, they revolve around this general studies or general knowledge. Right, but there is one, say for example, always we say, you have something called as return on investment. How much time you are investing, right? If you are investing more energy and more time, understanding says I am just preparing for a larger examination, right? So when I just talk about general studies or general knowledge, it's a time-consuming process. But let me tell you, once you are prepared for this general studies or general knowledge, many examinations in this country you can actually write. Almost you can keep writing. You will be eligible for writing many examinations. Right? Probability of you getting a post is also very, very high if I am just preparing for this area. Right? General aptitude, let me tell you, my friend, it's a very small area. 3 to 4 months of intense preparation should be enough to get a job in bank. Right? But I am just betting on a larger gamut. Right? Slightly larger, but I understand the return on investment is more for this general studies based examination. Okay. Right. So what I do, I just insist on this area. Those examinations which is based on general studies or general knowledge. Okay, right. Finest examination, you have this what? Civil service examination, correct? How many of you believe that civil service examination is very difficult? Right? Or you feel it is easy? Okay, how many of you feel it is easy? Right. Certainly it is not easy. But what I want to tell you, it is also not difficult. For example, assume that I am just talking about exams for this IAS and IPS. Okay. Not only IAS and IPS, this one particular examination recruits for more than 22 to 24 services. IAS, IPS, IFS are popular among them. That's it. Correct. Collectively, this examination you call them as what? Civil service examination. Conducted by this agency called as what? UPS. Okay. Union Public Service Commission. Now, let me talk only about this civil service examination. You know the scheme of this examination, right? Of course, I am not going to teach the syllabus of UPSC here, right? Only thing is that I am asking you, say for example, the scheme of examination. How many examinings, almost stages you have in this exam? Any idea you have? You have heard about prelims, mains, right? Interview. Forget about interview, my friend. When I talk about prelims and the mains examination, generally if you ask me, okay, I am just going to assume that I am preparing for civil service, right? I am going to start studying. Okay, assume that I am just starting my preparation in the civil service. Any idea that what are the subjects you will be reading in this civil service examination? Any idea? Any idea, my friend? What are the different subjects you have? Very good, history, because Manoj sir was here. Okay. Right, history. Very good, because I am here. Right. Apart from history and geography, my friend. Polity. Right? You call it as polity. Indian polity. Right? It's not political science, it is Indian polity. Apart from history, geography and polity, my friend. Economy, yes. Rather, I would recommend or I call it as economy, my friend. Right? Instead of calling it as economics, I prefer calling it as economy. There is a slight technical difference, right? Because we may not study about microeconomics, we will be studying only about what? Macroeconomics. Right, my dear friends, apart from economy, one more subject I have, you call them as what? Environment. Correct? These are the 5 major areas what you will be studying for what? Civil service examination. And we have a notion that civil service examination is the toughest examination in India. Obviously, yes. Right? Syllabus is not making this exam tough, my dear friend. What exactly is making this exam tough is the competition. Am I right? It is not the syllabus. Syllabus is history, geography, polity, economy, and environment. Now I have simple questions for you. Have you ever read history in schools? Yes. Right. Syllabus was there, but I did not read. That's a different story. Okay. What about geography, my friend? Have you read geography in your schools?
Yes.
Have you read polity?
Yes.
Right. Because always between history and geography, right, a few chapters I will be having, right? Collectively you call them as what? Civics, right? Right, in schools I used to call it as civics, but in my UPSC preparation, right, civil service preparation, I used to call it as what? Politics. Am I right? What about environment? Have you ever studied about environment? History and geography starts only from class 6. What about that book, what we were carrying till class 5? What exactly you call them as? Right? You call them as EVS, right? What is this EVS? Environmental science. My dear friends, out of these 5 subjects, history you have already completed, geography you have completed, polity partially you have completed, environment you have completed. It means I am telling you, any person who has qualified class 10 is half prepared to become an IAS officer. That's what the reality is. You ask me what exactly is the syllabus for civil service examination, hardly it goes beyond your school books. Right? That's the reason always we say, if you ask me, right, for geography, what is the study material I should select it? Right, I would recommend only one book. Right? I used to call it as what? NCERT books. Even history. Right? I do not know what Manoj sir has recommended. Right? If at all he would have recommended, I believe that it is NCERT books. Basically NCERT. What gives a foundation for any competitive examination is your school books. Entire civil service preparation, your competitive examination, the funda, what you will do is very simple. You will be going back to your schools, right? You will be making your foundation very strong. That is the essence for any competitive examination. Right? So let me tell you, even the so-called most difficult examination like civil service examination is actually not so difficult. Half of the syllabus already you got exposed to it. Right. I'm just giving you a broad idea. Okay. Right. Now, irrespective of the examination, assume that I am, say for example, assume that I am not preparing for civil service, irrespective of the examination, there are few SOPs. I hope you understand what is an SOP, right? Standard operating procedure. Or I put it as a golden rule, right? There are few golden rules you have to follow for any competitive examination. It can be civil service, it can be your CDS examination, it can be your ACA, whatever it is. Any examination, when the notification comes, right, you have to do few things, my dear. That's what I call them as what? The golden rules. In my parlance, I used to call it as what? SOP, right? An SOP. They ask me, okay, I am asking you, right, some examination you are going to do. What will be the first stage of your preparation? What exactly you will be doing? And one more thing let me tell you. Coaching, yes. Coaching will work you out. Right, it will work. Right, but let me understand, my friend, if you have a greater understanding or better understanding of this preparation, right, certainty of getting a job or your success rate will be high. So in that regard, if you ask me, what is the first step I should do? Right, what is the first step you should do? Assume that you are preparing for some examination. What is the first step you do? Syllabus. Without knowing what exactly is the syllabus, you cannot prepare for any examination. Know the syllabus. Right, I would say, more than knowing the syllabus, I would say decode the syllabus. I hope you understand what is decoding, right? For example, sometimes what happens? Syllabus is not explicitly given. Syllabus is not explained in detail. Am I right? In that occasion, what you have to do, you have to shortlist the likely topics of this syllabus. That's what I call them as what? Decoding of the syllabus. Okay. Number 2, my friend. once you decode the syllabus, right, then what exactly is another funda or golden rule you should follow? Always have a habit of referring, right, previous year's question paper. Right. Previous year's question paper is very, very important. And number 3, in order, right, write material. Right, I have called as what? Study material. The study material should be, right, concise, it should be simple, it should be small, but your study material should cover maximum part of the syllabus. Okay. Right. I said all 3. This 3 is very, very important. Let me tell you, my friend, if you just ask about the study material, I would always keep it at number 3. Because I believe understanding the syllabus is more important than shortlisting a material. Because only if my understanding of the syllabus is right, I can go for what? Selecting a correct material. Am I right? So this is what the order I call is. So what I'll do, I'll just give you one example or one instance where you can actually decode a syllabus. Just for an example's sake, what I have just taken, I have taken the syllabus of UPSC. Right. I'll just give you an idea that how exactly a syllabus can be decoded. You know the pattern of this examination, right? Civil service examination. Right. You have both prelims as well as what? Mains examination. Right. I have just taken the syllabus only of geography, my friend. I have not went beyond it, only geography. Right? Geography for prelims and geography for mains examination. Right. And I have a very, say for example, an innocent question. I do not know, but this question and answer is very popular, my friend. Right? If somebody is coming and asking you, right, which examination is easy? Right, prelims or mains, my friend, which is easy? See, this is 2-stage examination. Stage 1 I call them as preliminary examination. Stage 2 I call them as what? Mains examination. Civil service, it's a very popular question and answer, as I said. Right. If I'm asking you which examination is easy, my friend, which is easy? Actually both are difficult, correct? Right. But still, if I'm just going for a comparison, right, which is comparatively easy for my preparation, if you ask me, I will always say mains examination is easy. But what exactly is the reality, my friend? When I talk about preliminary examination, the entire syllabus is given in 7 lines. Only 7 lines of syllabus. But if you ask me mains examination, how much syllabus I have, this mains examination syllabus is for 7 pages. Right? Reading this syllabus itself is like reading a subject. 7 pages. Right? It comes in a very small booklet, my friend. But when I talk about preliminary syllabus, only 7 lines. Now you tell me, which is easy for me to prepare? Is it 7 lines of syllabus or 7 pages of syllabus? Which is easy? Which is easy, my friend? 7 pages. Why? You are correct. But simply I am just asking you, why you say that 7 pages of syllabus is easy? Very good. Because I understand here that topics are explained. It is given in detail. Alright. But when I talk about preliminary examination, what I have is just an indicative syllabus. So what I want to tell you, not only for civil service examination, any competitive examination, if you are just taking it, if you have a detailed syllabus, right, don't see it as a bulky syllabus. Right, it means your decoding, they are almost already they are made. Right, you may not sit and decode the syllabus. It's not needed. Already it is given in what? A detailed fashion. For example, preliminary examination, only for geography I am taking. Can you read this syllabus for preliminary examination? It says Indian and world geography. Right? Physical, social and economic geography of India. Correct. Only one line it is given. If you ask me, how many days I will take to prepare for this one line? And somebody said, right, you have to cover 100%. Right, 100%, my friend. If you want to cover all these topics, whatever the topics comes under this, right, if you want to sincerely prepare, right, I said, normally I used to say that, okay, this particular syllabus itself will take 1 year of your preparation. 1 year. Okay. So your history will take 1 year, sorry, geography will take 1 year, history will take 1 year, right, every subject will take 1 year. Okay. So what exactly will be the outcome? Right. You and your children will be writing the exam together. Correct? That's what the outcome will be. So somewhere I understand this is not possible. Am I right? So somewhere I have to take a right decision. I'll also tell you that how the right decision has to be taken. Now, somewhere I said this one line, right, if at all if you want to, say for example, assume you want to cover it completely, it may take 1 year. In that regard, if you ask me, right, one line itself takes 1 year, right? Right, my friend, as I said, one line itself is taking 1 year, my friend. Somebody is asking you, right, how much time this 3 paragraph will take? If you ask me, right, this will take hardly 10 to 12, not years, my friend, days. Right, 10 to 12 days. Now comes the question, one line is taking 1 year, how come 3 paragraph is taking only 10 to 12 days? Reason is very simple. Topics are given what? Explicitly. Am I right? It says important geophysical phenomena such as earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclones. Am I right? You're going to prepare about what? Earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclones. Right? The topics are explicitly given. But preliminary examination, it is not given. I'll tell you what. Right. Once again, I just want you to read it, then again I'll come back to it. It says India and world geography. Further it elaborates. How exactly it elaborates? Physical, social, and economic geography of India and world, my friend. I'll tell you what exactly is the meaning of it. Maybe I'll take you to geography. Okay. First, I'll just give you an overall idea about the subject geography. Then I'll just again take back you to the syllabus, my friend. So let me start with geography. And let me tell you, my friend, geography is a very easy subject. Most of the time, the word itself gives you the meaning of it. In that regard, if I'm just asking you, what do you mean by geography? What exactly you will be studying in geography? The name says it is what? Geography. What do you mean by graphy? Study. Geo means earth. It means geography. What exactly I'm going to study? I'm going to study about earth as simple as this. Right. Assume that I am a student of geography who is going to prepare geography for another 3-4 years. Okay. Say for example 3 years. Assume that I am a student of undergraduation. In that regard, right, the very first class, right, almost my professor will come and explain that, okay, geography is a very vast subject. So what exactly we are doing, that entire geography can basically or primarily be divided or classified into 2 major divisions. What are they? Right, geography can be classified or divided into physical geography and human geography. Right? So if at all if you want to classify, divide geography, geography can be primarily classified into physical and human geography. Alright. Now comes the question, okay, right, what is that I am going to study in physical geography? If you are asking me, I will say that in physical geography we will be studying about what? Earth. Then what about human geography? Human geography I will be studying about what? World. Right. Now comes another question. So far, I thought that both these words are same. But technically speaking, both are different. Earth and world is different. How to understand the meaning? Maybe the day-to-day life. Right? Assume that we will be using this parlance. Right? Sometimes I used to call it as house. Correct? Sometimes I used to call it as what? Home. Do you have any difference between them? Don't tell me spelling. Apart from spelling, no difference. Meaning has a difference, right? What is the difference? What do you mean by house? How many of you are coming from your house? Nobody? I wish nobody. Right. What do you mean by house? Very good. What is that? It is just a structure. A physical entity which is made up of brick and mortar, you call them as what? House. House is just a building, my friend. It is just a structure. I mean, if that is the case, can I say house is just a physical entity? Right? It's just a physical entity, my friend. Right, it is just a physical entity. Correct? Which occupies some space. It is just a building. On what occasion house becomes home? Very good. When this house has the socio-economic structure called as what? Family. When it has the presence of what? Human being, my friend. Correct? When house has human presence, then house becomes what? Home. Am I right? So house is just a physical entity, a structure without the presence of what? Human being. When this house, right, has this family or human beings in it, you call them as what? The same meaning you applied here. Physical geography, when I talk about study of earth, I'll be studying about earth in isolation of what? Human being. I'll be studying only about the physical entity of this nature. Am I right? I'll be studying about what? Land. I'll be studying about what? Air. I'll be studying about what? Water. Land you call them as what? Lithosphere. Air you call them as what? Atmosphere. Water you call them as what? Hydrosphere. That's the reason I said geography is nothing but what? Going back to schools and refreshing it. That's it. Right? So physical geography, what exactly I'll be studying is only these three spheres. Lithosphere, atmosphere and hydrosphere. But the same earth along with human being, if you study, you call them as what? Human geography. So what exactly you will be studying in human geography, my friend? The social setup of human being. The study of same, you call them as what? Social geography. Right? If you study about people, you call them as what? Social geography. If you study about the resources, you call them as what? Economic geography. If you study about population growth, population distribution, settlement, right, linguistic organization, cultural landscape, everything. Am I right? I call them as what? Social geography. When I talk about the resource basis, right, energy basis or the energy resources, right, when I talk about the economic nature of human being, am I right? Trade, transport, communication, all that thing if you are studying, you call them as what? Economic geography. Correct? That's the reason human geography is sometimes also called as what? Sometimes also called as what? Socio-economic geography. Sometimes also called as socio-economic geography. Right. Other name of human geography. So, if you ask me what are the major divisions in geography, I would say geography can be divided majorly into either 2 or 3. If I am saying 2, what are they? Physical and if I say 3, what are they? Physical, social and economic geography, my friend. These are the major 3 divisions. Or even you can say it is major 2 divisions, never mind. 2 and 3 is not going to change the concept. Okay. So what are the major divisions I have in geography? Correct? Can I remove this? Have an idea. Now comes another question. Geography is nothing but what? Study of space, my friend. You call them as what? A spatial study. Right? I hope you understand what is a space, right? Space means different places, as simple as this. Okay. In that regard, if you ask me what are the different approaches I have, what are the different approach of studying geography? It means what exactly is the area what I am studying, right? For example, assume if I am studying the entire geography of the world, right? That approach I call them as what? Universal approach. Right? I call them as what? Universal approach. If I am just studying only a part of the world, then I call them as what? A regional approach. Right? It is universal approach versus regional approach. Universal means entire world you are studying, right? In that regard, if I am just studying the entire world, that study I call them as what? World geography. Correct? Anything which is less than world is what? A region. Can you give me an example of a region? Any example of a region, my friend? I told you, anything which is less than the world, smaller than the world is a region. If I am just selecting only that region, I call them as what? Regional geography. Can you give me one example? Plenty are there. India, apart from India. See, it can be a continent, it can be a country, it can be a state, it can be a district, whatever it is. Correct? If you ask me, give me one example, my friend, I would take the example of what? India. If I am studying geography of India, then you call them as what? Indian geography. This is just an example. Right? Universal approach, I have only one thing that we call them as what? World geography. Regional geography has plenty. Among them, if at all if a student is preparing for this subject from India, he will be studying what? Indian geography. So what I have done, means almost we have done so far. Right? We have seen the divisions of it. When I talk about the divisions, how many divisions we have seen? I'll rewrite it if you want. Okay. I'll just rewrite it. Right. The number of divisions what we have seen. How many divisions this geography is divided into? 2 or 3. Am I right? If you say 2, what are they? Physical versus human. Correct? This human is also called as what? Socio-economic. Right. When I talk about the approach of this study, area of my selection, am I right? I am just dividing into 2. Universal, you call them as what? World geography. Right? And region what we have selected is what? India. The same you call them as what? Indian geography. Correct? Now divisions and approach method makes how many combinations? Say for example, I do not know how many of you seen the different books of geography. For example, NCERT class 12, my friend. I have 4 books in geography. Let me tell you that the 4 are the major areas what you will be studying in geography. If you ask me what are they, my friend, simple. 1 will be what? Physical geography of the world. Number 2, it will be physical geography of India. Number 3, it will be what? Human geography of world. And 4, it will be human geography of India. So if you want to prepare geography, say for example from India, you will be likely studying 4 areas. Physical geography of the world, physical geography of India, human geography of world, and human geography of India. Right. You can either call it as human geography of world or socio-economic geography of the world. The meaning is same. Similarly, you call them as what? Human geography of India or socio-economic geography of India. The meaning is what? Same. So entire geography, if you ask me, what are the 4 major areas of my study? These are the 4 major areas of my study. Right? There you complete the entire geography. Okay. So mostly majority 80% of this undergraduation student who are preparing for geography, what are the 4 major areas he or she will be studying if you ask me? These are the 4 major areas. Okay. Now after understanding this, right? Now let us come to the syllabus method. Syllabus for prelims. I hope you can read it, right? What does the syllabus says? Indian and world geography. It says what? Physical, social and economic. Social and economic is nothing but what? Human geography. Correct? So physical, social and economic geography of India and world. It means what exactly you have to study? Physical, social and economic geography of India and world. It means entire geography you have to read. That's the reason I said, if the syllabus is given in one line, right, decoding becomes very, very difficult. If syllabus is given in one line, preparation also becomes difficult. But always we have, say for example, a way out, my friend. And let me tell you, this examination is a competitive examination. I hope you understand what is a competitive examination, right? You are competing among your fellow members, right? Let me tell you, who are your fellow competitors? The people who are sitting in the class, they are fellow competitors. Only thing is that you have to outperform others. If you ask me, is it necessary for me to complete entire syllabus? Not at all. Right? I would say even 20 to 30% of the syllabus what falls here. If you can complete it, somewhere you can complete it, I am happy that that will be more than enough for this examination preparation. Right? How to understand that area which is important and not important, my dear friend. That's the reason I said rule number 2. What is the rule number 2 we have taken? Previous year's questions are very, very important. So, everything is fine. So just I want to convey that if the syllabus is not given in detail, your preparation is going to be slightly difficult. If you come to civil service examination, mains examination is comparatively easy because syllabus is given in detailed fashion. See the syllabus? Mains examination, it says important geophysical phenomena such as earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity site. Only 4 topics I know. Now I'm asking you, my friend. I've just given you a sentence, right? Is this sentence easy to prepare or slightly difficult? Read the sentence again. Right. And I feel that there is one word given in the syllabus which is making my preparation slightly difficult. Can you identify this word? Read it and identify it, my friend. This is the sentence. Important geophysical phenomena such as earthquake and so on it goes. There is one word which is making my preparation slightly challenging. What is it word? What is that word, my friend? You got it, some of you got it. What is this ETC? Etc. Etc. means what? Etc. means etc. Correct. Right. It means what? Anything and everything can be asked. Right. Now let me tell you, last 5 years, right? And they had a convention that every year one question will be asked from this paragraph. Right. Mains examination, civil service examination. Last 5 years, they have asked 5 questions, and all 5 questions came from this word, etc. Right. Not even the other words. Okay. Now comes the question. That's the reason normally UPSC we say, UPSC never you can say that it is out of syllabus. Right. If you are going and fighting with UPSC saying that okay, this is not mentioned in syllabus, UPSC will tell no, you have not seen it, etc. is there. Correct. It means anything can be asked. Now comes the final question. Can you decode this word etc.? Possible? Yes or no? Is etc. can be decoded or not? I say yes, it is decoded. It means how to decode this word etc. And I am telling you, if you can start decoding words like etc., right, if you feel that it means there are no grey areas in my syllabus, half of your preparation is done. Right. Only thing is that how to decode this word etc. Can I say this word etc. lies within the sentence? Yes or no? Yes. It means, can I say whatever is the commonality existing between earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity and cyclone, the same meaning etc. will also have. Yes or no? What are they common with? What exactly is common? What are they? Earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, they are what? Natural disaster. It means, only thing is that you have to identify other natural disaster. Give me an example. Very good. Flood. Drought. Very good. Landslide. Anything else, my friend? Natural disaster. Preparing for UPSC is also a disaster, correct? Right. Apart from that way. Give me an example. Okay. Flood you have given me. Drought you have given. Landslide you have given. Right. Now what I do, I just go for a systematic analysis. Okay. Systematic analysis. Somewhere we have identified that. Right. This is just a natural disaster. Etc. is nothing but what? A natural disaster, my friend. Okay. Instead of me almost, say for example, finding it, right, out of intuition, right, out of somewhere you call them as brainstorming, right. Instead of going for a brainstorming, Let me almost go in a systematic fashion. You would have heard about this organization, right? NDMA. And what is this NDMA? National Disaster Management Authority. Right? This authority itself is a disaster. Okay. Now, when we talk about this Disaster Management Authority, they have classified different disasters, my friend. What are the natural disasters they have classified? See, earthquake, flood, landslide, cyclones, tsunami, urban floods. Because flood, I understand. What is this urban flood, if you ask me? Flood in urban areas, flood in cities, correct? Same amount of precipitation in cities will be resulting in what? More flood. Finest example, Chennai, my friend. Even the small amount of precipitation, rainfall, will be resulting in what? Right, havoc-like condition. I mean, at Chennai there is only one condition, two conditions, my friend. Right, most of the year it will be drought, part of the year it will be flood. Okay, there is nothing called as normalcy in Chennai. Okay, right, either you will be having no water or you will be having water inside your house itself. Okay, these are the two conditions. Right, and I am from this place, my friend. Okay, whatever it is, right. So somewhere I am just going for a systematic classification. Whatever is not given, if I am just transferring it, right? Flood, urban flood, landslide, heat wave, etc. And my dear friends, can I tell you? Right, flood, already you have given me. Right, urban flood is the extension of flood itself. Landslide again you have given me. The only thing is that heat wave we have not given. Right, you have given drought, but drought is not there in NDMA classification. Very recently drought is added. Now only thing is that I have to see and I have to check whether my understanding or level of decoding is correct or not. Okay, how will I verify it? Previous year's question. Correct? What was asked in 2017 examination? Question, Himalayas are highly prone to landslide. Discuss the cause and suggest suitable measures to mitigate. Am I right? What is the central theme? Landslide. You have decoded it, correct? Right. Major cities in India is becoming more vulnerable to flood conditions. Discuss. What exactly is this? Urban flood. In what way can floods be converted into sustainable source of irrigation and or whether inland navigation? What is the central theme? Right? You have brought me flood, you have brought me landslide. So somewhere I want to convey, right, that understanding the syllabus is very, very important. Not only understanding the syllabus, I would say it is decoding the syllabus. Okay. Decoding the syllabus is very, very important. But again, there is a limitation. Whether I can decode the entire syllabus, no. For that, a greater understanding is there. Never mind, right? Maybe institutes or the programs of this kind will be decoding the respective syllabus, and accordingly the topics will be selected. Right. So somewhere I just want to put a point that knowing the syllabus is very important. Decoding the syllabus is very, very important. Number two, always you have this practice of referring what? Previous year's questions. Only third comes what? Material. And my dear friends, let me tell you, material should be selected in such a way that the size of this material should be small enough. That doesn't mean that you should not have any material. Because you only will be saying someday, okay, you only said that minimum material should be there. Right? My minimum is 0. Don't do that. Okay. Minimum in the sense, it has to cover maximum syllabus, but size should be minimum. Okay. There is no material which is available in the market which covers what? 100% of the syllabus. Okay. So go for the right material for the right subject. Okay. Geography, if you ask me any examination, not only for civil service, any examination you ask me, I will not go beyond NCR. Even in NCR geography, I will be restricting only to class 6 to 10 NCRT. Not even beyond. I do not know how many of you have read this class 6 to 10 NCRT. If you will be comparing this class 6 to 10 NCRT with class 11 and 12, the syllabus and the content is more or less same. Right? What is different is only what? Depth of analysis. Okay, only that is going to change. So I'm telling you, geography you can almost, right, you can go with what? 6 to 10 NCRT. Okay. So what I have just done, I have just given you a broad idea of knowing the syllabus and preparing for any competitive examination. So what I do next, I'll start, yeah. What I'll do, I'll just start with geography. As I said, right, my friend. So as I said, there are few common areas for all competitive examinations where geography is a part of it, my friend. So what we'll do, we'll just start with that part of geography. Okay. So for example, we'll talk about the very basic ideas, right? We'll just start with the shape of the earth, we'll start with the rotation, we'll start with the revolution and so on. Okay. So maybe I'll just starting with the subject itself. Okay. So when I talk about the shape of the earth, what exactly is the shape of the earth? Right. So when I talk about the shape of the earth, generally the shape of the earth, you call them as what? Geoid. Okay. You call them as what? Geoid. Right, now comes the question, what is the meaning of this geoid? Right? Geoid literally means what? Earth's shape. Geoid literally means Earth's shape. Right. Now here, when I talk about geoid, today we use this word called as geoid. But earlier we never used this word. Okay, we started describing it. Once we used to describe the shape of the earth. Right, how exactly we describe the shape of the earth? Somewhere we say that earth is more like a sphere. Right? It is not exact sphere, but it is more like a sphere. Right, when I say more like a sphere, somewhere I understand the radius of this earth is not uniform everywhere. Okay, somewhere I have extended radius and somewhere I have what? Truncated radius. If you ask me, where exactly I have the maximum radius of earth, the maximum radius of earth is recorded at what? Equator. And where exactly I have the minimum radius of earth? Minimum radius of earth is recorded at poles. So somewhere you can write it. Earth is more like a sphere. Earth is more like a sphere. But with bulge at equator. With bulge at equator, and poles being relatively flatter. And poles being relatively flatter. So, we know the shape of the earth, we call them as geoid. What is the literal meaning of geoid? Somewhere I said geoid means, geo means what? Earth. Right? It means what? Earth's shape. Right? So why exactly they are calling it as Earth's shape? Because no planet in our solar system exactly resembles that of what? Earth. Every planet has their unique shape. See, I can have a planet which is very similar to Earth. For example, one planet you call them as what? Earth's twin, my friend. Any idea which planet is called as Earth's twin? Which planet is called as Earth's twin? This planet resembles more like Earth. Which planet, my friend? It is not Mars. It is Venus. Right? There also somewhere, it is not same, my dear friend. You can call it as similar, but they are not same. Every planet, it is unique in its shape. Okay. Right. Now, everything we have an idea. Only thing is that I should understand or I should explain why there is a bulge. Right? Somewhere I said that there is a bulge at equator. Comes the question, why there is a bulge? See, any fast rotating object, Or let me tell you, any rotating object, it cannot be a sphere. Am I right? Now comes the question, why there is a bunch? Right, if you ask me why there is a bunch, okay, I am asking you, my friend, why there is a bunch? Or somewhere, I always believe that geography is more like a compensation. If somebody is asking that why poles are flat, I'd always say it is compensated because of equatorial bulge. Somewhere I have an understanding that the extra rock that what I have in equator is actually being pulled indirectly from what? Poles, my friend. So if somebody is asking why poles are flat, I would say it is all because of what? Equatorial bulge. Now I am changing the question. Why there is an equatorial bulge? Don't tell me because it is poles or flat. Why there is an equatorial bulge? Say for example, I do not know how many of you would sing this washing machine, right? When I talk about the washing machine, drying your clothes, it uses only one principle, right? The drum rotates very fast, right? Whenever the drum rotates very fast, right, there comes one force, my friend. The force which acts outside the center. We call them as what? Centrifugal force. My dear friends, the same reason, right? The bulge is all because of what? Centrifugal force. Right? We call them as what? All because of what? Centrifugal force. Any fast rotating object, you will be having a centrifugal force. Okay. So somewhere you can raise a question. You yourself can raise a question. Why there is a bulge at equator? And you can write the answer, only one word, centrifugal force. Right. And why centrifugal force is maximum at equator, if you ask me? I would always say velocity of rotation of Earth, where exactly you have maximum? It is at equator, my friend. Right? It means I am just talking about velocity at the surface of the Earth. Am I right? So this, when I talk about this statement, it should not give you a picture as though that different places on Earth is having different rotational velocity, right? Or different time of rotation. No. See, what exactly is speed, my friend? What is the formula for speed? We call it as what? Distance by time. Right. So for example, somebody is saying, right, I was traveling at 40 km per hour. Kilometer is what? Distance. Per hour. Hour is what? Time. Right. Speed is distance by what? Time. So here time is constant. Right. Approximately how much this Earth takes to complete one rotation? Approximately 24 hours. Right. That is constant. Now what is going to change is this distance. Say for example, assume I have a person who is standing near my friend. Right, in 24 hours, what exactly will be the distance covered by him? Only this much distance. Right, if a person is standing here, very near to the polar region, this is the only distance what is covered. Right. So where exactly the maximum distance is covered? Equatorial region. That's the reason I said velocity of rotation at surface is maximum where? Equator. That also you can write it. The centrifugal force. The centrifugal force. The centrifugal force is maximum at equator. Is maximum at equator because the rotational velocity of Earth, at the surface is greatest at equator. Is greatest at equator. Right? Right, my dear friends. So what exactly is the shape of the Earth we have seen? And before concluding the class, at least today, right, we talk about this Earth movement in a very brief fashion. What is this Earth movement? See, normally the combined movement of Earth, say for example rotation and revolution, you call them as what? Earth movement. Right? You understand what is rotation, right? What do you mean by rotation? What do you mean by revolution? Simple, right? Rotation means what? Rotation means rotation, revolutions mean revolution. Correct? Now, if at all, if you're putting in simple terms, what is rotation? Spin. Layman's understanding, I call it as what? Spin of Earth. Right. Or technically, if you want to put in, I call it as what? Right. Angular movement of Earth on its own axis. Right. So, what is rotation? Spin of Earth on its axis. You call them as what? Rotation. What is revolution? Movement of Earth around the sun. You call them as what? Revolution. Okay. So, what is rotation? What is revolution? I have it. Now, one complete rotation. What exactly I call them as? If Earth completes one rotation, what is this time period you call them as? Can I call it as one day? Right, one complete rotation, sunrise to sunrise, noon to noon. You call them as what? One day. One complete revolution, what exactly you call them as? You call them as what? 1 year. So what is rotation? I have an idea. What is revolution? I have an idea. Right, I'll give you in detail, but only thing is that I'm just giving you a broad idea. Right? Spin of Earth on its own axis rotation, movement around sun, you call them as what? Revolution. One complete rotation, you call them as what? 1 day. One complete revolution, you call them as what? 1 year. Now, my dear friends, what is the immediate outcome of rotation? Because Earth is rotating, what is the immediate outcome? Very good. Because Earth is rotating, my friend, you have what? Day and night difference. Right? Why exactly the sun is rising and setting? It's all because of what? Rotation. What is the immediate outcome of revolution? Because Earth is revolving, very good. What is the immediate outcome? Season cycle. Somewhere I have summer, right? Right. After summer I have what? Autumn, winter and spring. If you ask me why exactly this difference, it is all because of what? Revolution. So what is rotation? What is revolution? Generally we have taken it. Next class we will take it in detail. So maybe somewhere we just start the class now. Next class we'll see it in details. Right.
खत्म हो गया ना
दूसरा so I'll be handling geography for you. Means out of means. How many of you are preparing for civil service in this school? Larger. Very good. Fine. Any other exams, say for example, any bank exams you're preparing for? Are you preparing for any bank exam? So you're preparing only for bank exams. Now what I understand, the crowd is more of a mixed crowd, right? So what I thought, I will be handling those areas which is common to all examination. It means I will not handle only for civil service examination. Okay. So that topic what I am going to teach is also part of civil service examination and it is also part of other competitive examination. So any examination which is based on general studies, right, it means so some of the topics will be covered. At previous batches, I was just explaining them how to decode the syllabus, right? How to understand the syllabus, how to prepare for competitive examination. I feel that it is not needed for this batch. Can we directly start with geography, or you need that general idea about competitive examination? Whatever you say, we'll go with it. Right? I'm just giving it to your choice. Right? Or you want me to directly start with geography? Start with geography, right? That's right. That sounds good, right? Right. All right, my dear friends. So if at all, if you're just asking me, okay, right, if at all, if I'm just preparing for any competitive examination, let the subject be geography. What is the study material or books I should follow for geography, if you ask me? Hardly I'll be going beyond NCERT. You have heard about NCERT books, right? Normal school books, right? Normal NCERT class 6 to 10 book, right? We can manage it with it. I'm not saying that it is sufficient. I'm not saying that all the questions will be asked from this book, right? NCERT is not the source material from where the questions will be asked. Am I right? But NCERT is a source of knowledge. It may not be a source of question, but it is a source of knowledge. Okay, right. So whatever I am teaching, some of the concepts you will be having in class 6 NCERT, my friend. But I have also, right, almost prepared one supplementary material. Right, you will be getting that supplementary material also. Okay. So whatever I am teaching in class, that will be there in the material also. Okay. So what I will do, I will start with the very basic concepts. Like what is the shape of the earth? What do you mean by earth's movement? Right, what do you mean by rotation? What is revolution? What is season cycle? Right? Even I'm just talking about latitude, longitude. The concepts related to the latitude and longitude also will be discussed. Okay. So what I do, I'll start with a very basic item, right? Right. You call them as what? Shape of the earth, right? And let it be interactive in nature, right? If somebody is asking you what exactly is shape of the earth is, today, right? We used to almost give it in one line or one word. You call them as what? Geoid. Today, somebody is asking you what is the shape of the earth. The shape of the earth is what? Geoid. They ask me what is the meaning of geoid. Every word has a meaning, right? Right. In that regard, if you ask me what is the meaning of this geoid, geoid means Earth's shape. Right? Geoid means Earth's shape. Right? But sometimes it sounds sarcastic, right? If somebody is asking you what is the shape of the Earth, if you not want to call it as geoid, you'll be calling it as what? Earth's shape itself. Means what? Earth is having a unique shape, where no other planet is having the same shape of what? Right. No planet is same with it. A planet can be resembling very similar to that of an Earth. Am I right? But we do not have any planet. I bet even the entire universe you will not have any planet or any celestial body that is exactly resembling or exactly same as Earth. Because I strongly believe, right, every planet is unique in its shape. That's the reason I call them as what? Geoid. Correct? But if you want to explain, if you want to describe this geoid, somewhere you can write it. Right? Earth is more like a sphere. Earth is more like a sphere. More like a sphere. With bulge at equator. With bulge at equator. Right? Equator, there is a bulge, my friend. And poles being relatively flat. And poles being relatively flat. I repeat if you want. I said Earth is more like a sphere with bulge at equator and poles being relatively flat. So one thing I understand, right? The radius of Earth is not uniform. Where exactly the maximum radius of Earth is experienced or recorded? Bulge, am I right? It means where exactly, entire world, my friend, where exactly you have the maximum radius of Earth. Radius of Earth is not uniform. Earth is not a perfect sphere. Am I right? Where you have the maximum radius. Diagram itself says, right? Right. If at all, if I'm just going through this diagram, equatorial diameter is somewhere around 12,756 kilometers. Numbers are not important. Don't worry about the number. Only two facts I have to remember. Where exactly I have maximum radius. Maximum radius is recorded at where, ma'am? At equator, right? 0 degree. Where exactly you have the minimum radius of Earth recorded? Where? Poles. Minimum radius is recorded at what? Poles. It is recorded at poles. Right. So where maximum and where minimum we have an idea. Now always they ask you a question, right? Why Earth is not a perfect sphere? See, let me tell you, any rotating object, to be very precise, any fast rotating object can never be a sphere. Finest example, I am just giving you an experiment. You take a balloon, right? You fill it with water, right? Assume, say for example, I am just suspending this balloon. Somewhere I am just suspending this balloon. This balloon is more spherical. If I start rotating this balloon, what will happen? Will it be a sphere? No, slightly it will start bulging. Alright. So whenever this balloon bulges, at somewhere it will be compensated. If you increase the velocity, what will happen? The rate of bulge will be more. Alright. That's the reason I said, right. Whenever I have a rotating object, the bulge will always be there. Okay. That's what the normal law of physics is. Tomorrow if Earth stops rotating, who knows? Maybe it will regain its spherical nature of it. Right? Fine. So we have answered it. Right. Excuse me. Right, my friend. Now, factually I know what radius. Knowing the radius is not important. If you ask me what is the average radius of Earth, the numbers what it is given here, my friend, it is diameter. Right? Half the diameter you call them as what? Radius. Right? So average radius of Earth is somewhere around 6,378 kilometers. Average radius. But this radius will differ from place to place. Right. Now we have seen the fact. Now comes the question, why there is a bulge? Somewhere I myself said, any fast rotating object, there will be a bulge. Now comes the question, why there is a bulge, my friend? Any idea why there is a bulge? If at all, if I am just, say for example, asking me, it's talking about the fast rotating object, I'll be having one force which acts away from the center. What is that force you call them as? The same force which normally dries your clothes in washing machine, right? Right? Whenever it's almost it dries, what happens? The drum almost rotates at maximum velocity, right? What is that force you call them as? Fantastic. You call them as what? Centrifugal force. That somewhere you can write. You yourself can write. Right? Why there is a bulge? Somewhere you can write and write as a question. Why there is a bulge at the equator? And answer you can write it as what? Centrifugal force. Right, almost every fact and the reason for Earth's shape that also you have taken. I have explained to you why there is a bulge. Right. Now why the bulge is experienced at equator, if you ask me? Entire Earth, see this is the axis of rotation, right? The axis along with the rotation, Earth rotates, am I right? This axis of rotation always runs between pole to pole, right? North pole to south. Here, when I talk about the velocity of rotation at the surface, right, entire Earth, my friend, where exactly you will be having maximum velocity of rotation? Where? When I talk about maximum velocity or maximum speed of rotation, where exactly you experience the maximum speed? It is an equator. I'll tell you why. See. You know the distance means almost the formula of speed, right? What is the formula of speed? You call them as speed or velocity, right? You call them as what? Distance by time. Right? See, this time is constant, right? 24 hours. It means one rotation Earth approximately takes what? 24 hours to complete one rotation. In that one rotation, can I say a person who is standing here, what will be the distance traveled by this person? Can I say only this much distance? Right, if he is standing right at poles, my friend, there will be zero distance. He will not travel any distance. But when I talk about the person who is standing here, what will be the distance covered by him? See, maximum distance. Alright, time is same. If the distance increases, speed also increases. In that regard, if you ask me, where the maximum velocity of rotation is experienced at the surface, if you ask me, it is at E. So wherever the rotational velocity is maximum, centrifugal effectivity is also maximum. Correct? So this is the place where I have maximum velocity of rotation. Okay. Right. So why centrifugal force is maximum at the equator? We have right? Right, my friend. So we have seen the shape of the Earth. Right. We have almost taken all the facts regarding the shape of the Earth. Right. Only few facts. See, I strongly believe that hardly you can have a question which is going beyond it. Let me consolidate whatever we have seen. What is the shape of the earth? Geoid. What is the literal meaning? More spherical but bulge at equator flat. What is the reason for bulge at equator? Centrifugal force. That's it. Why centrifugal force? That also we have justified. Okay. Right. Moving beyond that. Shape of the earth here. Right. Now let me discuss about what? Earth's movement. Or sometimes you call them as what? Earth movement. What is this earth movement? The combined movement of rotation and revolution together, you call them as what? Earth movement. So earth movement involves what? Rotation and revolution. So the combined movement of rotation and revolution, you call them as what? Earth. Right. Now all these facts you already know, but only thing is that let me re-insist again. What do you mean by rotation? What exactly you mean by rotation? The only problem is that we know it, but somewhere we may not be in a situation to put it in words. Okay. As a layman, if I want to explain what exactly is rotation, can I say rotation is nothing but what? Spin of earth. The best word, I can say what? It is a spin of earth. Right. Technically, if you want to talk about rotation, what is rotation? I would say angular movement of earth around, on its own axis, you call them as what? Rotation. What is this revolution then? Movement of earth around the sun, you call them as what? Revolution. Very good. So what is rotation? I know. What is revolution? The only thing is that some complexities arise because rotation and revolution takes place simultaneously. Right? While earth is rotating, earth also what? Earth also revolves. Okay. So what is rotation? What is revolution we have? Right. What is that one rotation very popularly called as, my friend? If earth completes one rotation, what exactly this one complete rotation is very popularly called as? One complete rotation. Assume that earth has completed one rotation. What do you call it as? Very good. You call them as what? 1 day, my friend. If earth completes one revolution, right, this period you call them as what? 1 year. Very good. So what is rotation? We know. Right, what is one complete rotation? That also. And my dear friends, just because earth is rotating, what is the immediate outcome? Very simple. Just because earth is rotating, what is happening? Very good. Day and night difference. Because earth is revolving, what is the outcome? Season cycle. That's it. Right? So what is rotation? What is revolution? One complete rotation you call them as what? 1 day. One complete revolution you call them as what? 1 year. Rotation results in what? Day and night difference. Sunrise and sunset. Am I right? Revolution causes what? Season cycle. Am I right? Right. Summer, autumn, winter and spring. Why? Revolution. So knowing that what we'll do, right, systematically we'll add it. If you want to add, you can write it, you can write it. First you take the concept of earth's rotation. Somewhere you can write it. Somewhere you can write it. This is simple terms. Right, I'll just dictate, you just write it. Spin of earth. Spin of earth. Spin of earth on its own axis. Spin of earth on its own axis is called as rotation. Spin of earth on its own axis is called as rotation. And one complete rotation is called as 1 day. It's called as 1 day. And rotation causes day and night difference. Rotation causes day and night difference. Everything about rotation we have taken, right? Now comes one very important understanding. If somebody is asking you, what exactly is the direction of rotation, my friend? Which direction Earth rotates? Earth always rotates from what? West to east. Very important. Sometimes people say it is clockwise and counterclockwise. That understanding is completely wrong. We can never say whether it is clockwise or counterclockwise. Right? The best understanding, what is the direction of rotation? It rotates from what? West to east. That is the reason, right? Everything appears for us as though they are moving from what? East to west. Assume that you are traveling by bus, my friend, right? If at all, if you are traveling by bus, almost sitting in the window seat, right? It will appear that everything is moving in a backward direction, right? You will be moving in a direction, and even trees, you will be feeling that it is moving in a backward direction, right? But what exactly is happening? They are not moving, we are moving, right? So what exactly happens most of the time, my friend? Whenever I talk about sun is rising in the east and moving towards the west, that is notional. Sun is not moving, right? With respect to Earth, Earth is moving. Because Earth is rotating from west to east, it appears that every celestial body is moving from what? East to west. So which direction sun rises? East. Which direction sun moves? West. Which direction moon rises? East. Same direction. Which direction moon moves? Towards the west. Am I right? Which direction generally star rises? East. I am not talking about pole star. Pole star is an exception. Right. Except pole star, when I talk about the larger, right, almost consortium of stars, they rise in the what? East. So anything which rises, we call them as what? Right. It will be rising in the east. Right. Fine. It is all about rotation. So far, what we have seen is all simple facts. Okay. But what I do, slightly I add complexities to it. Okay. I am adding it because that question is already been asked in UPSC. Right. And let me tell you, I am not only concentrating on civil service examination, I am concentrating also on other exams of UPSC and other exams of other agencies. Okay. Right. So slightly let me add complexities. Let me ask you a question. Right. Then I will just say, for example, right, my friends. First, let me ask you a question. Then maybe I'll just take this complexities. Okay. Right. Why complexities comes if you ask me? Somewhere I told you rotation and revolution is Earth movement, right? Right. Now comes the question: is this rotation and revolution, right, happening, right? Say for example, independent of each other, or should I say that both are happening simultaneous to each other? Which is the best depiction? Rotation and revolution takes place what? Simultaneous to each other. It is not that the Earth is rotating first, then it is going for a revolution. While Earth is rotating, it is also going for what? Revolution. This is the one which is actually adding complexities. So somewhere I said it is adding complexities. Right, I just raise a question. Now I am just asking you a simple question. What is the time taken by Earth to complete 360 degree of rotation on its own axis? Right? What is the time taken by Earth to complete 360 degree of rotation on its own axis? I'll give you a clue, my friend. Right? What is the clue if you ask me? It is not 24 hours. That's the reason I said I am going to add complexities. I repeat the question. Time taken by Earth to complete 360 degree of rotation on its own axis. How much time? It is not 24 hours, my friend. Rather it is 23 hours, 56 minutes and 4.09 seconds. Even the seconds you leave it. Okay. Approximately it is 23 hours and 56 minutes. It means 4 minutes less than 24 hours. Approximately it is 4 minutes less than 24 hours. This is the time taken by Earth to complete what? One rotation on its own axis. Right? Right, I have just given you a fact. Right, okay, so far I don't have any. Okay. Now again I have a confusion, right? Every day, whenever I say one day, how much exactly is the time my watch is showing? 24 hours, am I right? Right. Then comes the question, what do you mean by this 24 hours? Why my watch every day shows the 24 hours? Right? If that is the case, my friend, I'll understand first what exactly is this 24 hours. Then I'll come to this 360 degree of rotation. Okay. So far it is okay, right? Can I have this? Yes? Yeah. Fine, my friends. Now the question is, what do you mean by 24 hours? Okay. I'm just giving you 4 options. Any examination you write it, always you will be having 4 options, right? I'm also inspired by it. I'm just giving you 4 options. You tell me which is the best depiction of 24 hours. Right? Say for example, number 1. It is sunrise of today to sunrise of tomorrow. Can it be 24 hours? Yes or no? Okay, fine. Sunset of today to sunset of today. Can it be 24 hours? Today sun is setting. Tomorrow also sun will set. Will the time difference between the 2 events, will it be 24 hours? Right. Okay, fine. I'm giving you one more choice. Noon of today to noon of tomorrow. I'm giving you one more choice. All of the above. Now you tell me which is the best option I have. Among the 4 events what I have shown. Right. What is the best 24 hours time period? Sunrise to sunrise, sunset to sunset, noon to noon, or all of them. Come to conclusion. Do not know can also be an answer. Right. Among the 4, my friend, what is the best option? What is the best option? See, simple, right? Every day, right, I call it as a 24 hours. Okay, for example, my friend, sunrise time, is it constant or it changes every day? It changes every day. So I understand that every day it will not be 24 hours. Someday it can, but every day it cannot be. If sunrise time is changing, sunset time will also change. What will not change? Right, noon always occurs at what time, my friend? Whenever I say noon, what is the time? Right, it is 12 AM or PM? It is PM, my friend. Okay. Right. PM. By convention, noon is what? 12 PM. Alright. See, that's the reason. Either it is AM or PM, you cannot say. Why you cannot say? Because when I talk about AM, what is AM? AM means anti-meridian and PM means what? Post-meridian. It's not prime meridian, post-meridian. Okay. Past the meridian, you call them as what? Post-meridian. Before that meridian, you call them as what? Anti-meridian. Sun is exactly placed over that meridian, you call them as what? Alright. So noon is the midpoint of a day. Any, right, say for example, even a second, 1 second before this noon, you call them as what? Right, 4 noon. Am I right? AM. Right, even 1 second after this, you call them as what? Afternoon. Right, PM. Am I right? By convention, noon, you call them as what? 12 PM. Now, 12 PM of today to 12 PM of tomorrow. What is the time difference? 20 minutes. So they asked me, among the 4, which brings the best depiction of 24 hours? It is noon. Correct? Now I should understand what is noon. Noon, I said it is 12 PM. But what is the phenomena you experience during noon, my friend? Normally in school days we study, right? Noon. What exactly almost you feel it? You experience it. See, whenever I talk about time, right? Time is always a relative position of sun in the sky. Right? Whenever I talk about time, indirectly I am saying that where exactly sun is placed in the sky. See, only this generation or slightly one generation before we were using watch. And watches, right? Right? When I talk about, say for example, ancestors, my grandfather, he never used to use a watch, right? Right? He'll be looking at the sun, he'll be looking at the shadow, he'll be approximately telling you what exactly is there. So my dear friends, time is nothing but what? A relative position of sun in the sky. Right, my dear friends? Right. Now, if that is the case, you tell me what you understand by moon. Where is the sun? Moon. Where exactly is the sun? Don't tell me it is in the sky. Where is the sky? Above your head. Am I right? So can I say noon is nothing but what? Right. Above your head. Right? Can I call them as what? Head-sun position? Later I will change it. Later I will change it. It is not that entire places of the globe you will be having this head-sun position. This head-sun position is limited. Alright? Only it occurs 1 or 2 days in few places of the world. Right? Not every places of the world every day. Okay. Right now, right, later I will correct it. Right now I am just saying noon is what? Head-sun position. Head-sun position means what? Sun is exactly placed where? Above your head. Right, this is what you call them as what? Head-sun position. Right, right. With this, now, I'm just talking about 24 hours time. Okay? Right. Noon of yesterday. Right? Noon of yesterday. This is noon of yesterday. Can I say somewhere a person is standing here? Okay, maybe I just put a cap for him. It's very hot. Okay, sun is exactly placed above his head. Alright. If that is the case, can I say it is exactly noon? Because what is the depiction of noon? You call them as what? Head-sun position. Right. Now time is 12 p.m. Time is 12 p.m. Correct? Now Earth is rotating. Right? But you know, while Earth is rotating, Earth is also what? Revolving. So after 360 degree of rotation, now 360 degree of rotation is over. Right? After 360 degree of rotation, my dear friends, is the sun placed above his head today? This is yesterday. Right? After 1 day, after 360 degree of rotation, because Earth is also moving. Alright? Just because Earth is moving, is the sun exactly placed above his head today? No. Am I right? If that is the case, 1 day is over or 360 degree is over, but now the sun is not placed above his head. It means he is almost displaced by some angle. Am I right? Earth is displaced by some angle. Approximately how much angle? That's how I have to calculate. Right? Very simple calculation. 1 year. 1 year. Approximately how many days? Approximately. How many years? How many days? 365 days. Approximately. So in 365 days, how many degree in revolution it has to complete? How many degree? 360 degree of revolution it has to complete. Of revolution. Right? If that is the case, in 1 day, right? Approximately how many degree it will get displaced by? 1 degree. So simple, right? 365 days. 360 degree. 1 day, see. Fine, it's not going to make much difference, right? You may claim it is less than 1 degree, I also accept. That's the reason I am used to this approximation. If that is the case, can I say every day, almost every day, this Earth will move 1 degree in its what? Revolutionary orbit. Will you agree that? 365 days, slowly, steadily, it will move what? 360. So that's the reason I said in 1 day, my friend. In 1 day, right? Earth will approximately move how many degree? 1 degree. Right. Now you tell me, right? This gentleman who is standing here, in order to face the sun, why he should face the sun? Then only you call them as what? Noon. Am I right? In order to face the sun, how many degree it has to tilt further? 1 degree. Whatever the degree got displaced, right? It has to get adjusted. Am I right? Okay. Only after adjusting this position by 1 degree, right, you will experience what? Noon. Can I say? Now, my dear friends, can I say now noon is nothing but what? When I talk about 24 hours, it is 360 degree of rotation plus 1 degree of adjustment. Yes or no? Yes? If that is the case, my friend, 24 hours is not 360 degree of rotation, it is what? 361 degree of rotation. 361 degree of rotation on its own axis. Correct? On its own axis. So let me tell you, it is not 360 degree, it is 361. Right? Right, because of this difference, my friend, actually very technically speaking, we have two types of days. The time taken by Earth to complete the 360 degree of rotation this day, right, we call them as what? Sidereal day, my friend. We call them as what? Sidereal day. Right? Right. 360 degree of rotation, you call them as what? Sidereal day. Whereas this 361 degree of rotation, 24 hours, very popularly you call them as what? Synodic day. Sometimes also called as solar day. Right? You call them as what? It's 24 hours and 361 degree of rotation, you call them as what? Synodic day, or you call them as what? Solar day. Okay. So actually speaking, we have two types of days. Sidereal day will be using only for celestial observations. Geographic calculation will be using the sidereal day. Day-to-day parlance, we never use this sidereal day. What is very common for us? Synodic day. What we use it in day-to-day parlance is what? Synodic day. What is the other name of synodic day? Solar. A day with respect to sun. That's what you call them as what? Solar. Right. Now is it clear? Right. And all the slides what I am using it, you will be getting it. If you have a WhatsApp group, whatever it is, right, I will ask your organizer to post it. And the notes also, we have some supplementary notes for it. So never mind. Whatever you can copy from this diagram, you can copy. Right, so far, right, can I run this? Now, as I said, there are two types of day, my friend. You call them as what? Synodic day. The synodic day is also called as what? Solar. Right. Another is called them as what? Sidereal day. So the basic difference between them, we just take. What is very common, normal, what is very popular is what? Synodic. Now here, only thing is that I should understand, whenever I say 360 degree of rotation, it is with respect to what? On its axis. When I talk about 360 degree of rotation, right, on its own axis by Earth, you call them as what? Sidereal. Right, how many degree Earth rotates to complete 24 hours? Approximately 361 degree. 361 degree on its own axis. But what is slightly interesting and slightly confusing also, this 361 degree with respect to Earth is 360 degree with respect to Sun. Am I right? That's the reason. Very popularly we say one complete rotation with respect to Sun, you call them as what? Synodic. Right. Whereas one complete rotation on its own axis, you call them as what? Sidereal. I repeat again. One complete rotation with respect to sun is called as synodic. One complete rotation with respect to, and or I say one complete rotation on its own axis, you call them as what? Synodic. Now one more fact also I can take. Right? You call them as near star and distant star. Right? One complete rotation with right, distant star. You call them as what? Sidereal. What is the distant star? Any idea which is the distant star? Sun is the nearest star. Okay. Distant star is nothing but what? Point of infinity. A star which has not been discovered till today. Correct? That's what I call it as what? Distant star. Okay. So another way also I can call it as one complete rotation with respect to distant star, sidereal tail. One complete rotation with near star, you call them as what? Synodic. So let me consolidate. One complete rotation on its own axis is what? Sidereal. One complete rotation with respect to sun, you call them as what? Synodic. Right? Sun is the near star. So different way also I can call it as, right? One complete rotation with the near star, you call them as what? Synodic or solar day. One complete rotation with the distant star, you call them as what? Synodic. Okay. So only thing is that I want to understand that there are two types of things. What is the time taken for the respective days? That also I have given you my friend. Okay. Sidereal is 23 hours and 56 minutes. Synodic is 24 hours. Okay. Right. Right, my friends. So this is all about rotation. Okay. Any doubts in rotation? Sidereal, synodic day, any difference? Any difference? Right. Any doubts as such? So let me tell you, we will not use this sidereal day any further. Later also when I talk about concepts like time and time zones, what I will be saying that every time I will be saying 360 degree of rotation. So that 360 degree is not with respect to what? Its axis. That 360 degrees with respect to what? Sun. Right? That's the clarification. Right, my friends. So rotation we have done it. Now moving to the other concept, revolution. Right? What is revolution? Right? What do you mean by revolution? Somewhere you can write it. What is revolution? You can write it. The movement of Earth around the sun, the movement of Earth around the sun is called as revolution. Movement of Earth around sun is called as revolution. One complete revolution is called as 1 year. One complete revolution is called as 1 year. And revolution causes season cycles. Revolution causes season cycles. Season cycle. Later you will understand that it is not only revolution. I'll add one more factor later. But revolution is the primary reason why you have what? Season cycles. Seasons, different seasons, right? Right. So what is revolution? We have an idea, right? Right, my friend. So we are there in this chapter, revolution, at least topic, what is revolution? What is revolution? You know, movement of Earth around sun, you call them as what? Revolution. And if you specifically ask me, what exactly is the orbit? Right, which orbit? Is it going, means almost moving in a circular orbit? Answer is no. It is moving in what? Elliptical orbit. Am I right? So somewhere later I understand, means you just know what is this elliptical orbit. Okay. So movement of sun around this, movement of Earth around sun in an elliptical orbit, you call them as what? Revolution. One complete revolution, you call them as what? 1 year, my friend. Alright, 1 year. One complete rotation we are calling it as what? 1 day. Now comes one simple question. How long is 1 year? Very long. But how long is it? When I talk about how many days or approximately what is the time taken by Earth to complete one such revolution, how many days it takes? How long is 1 year? 365 days. Is it 365 days? Is it 350? Means 365 days. That's the question. 365? No. 365? 1 by 4. Right, you mean to say quarter of a day. Right, can I call this as 6 hours? Okay. Again, I am giving you an option, my friend. You tell me what exactly is the option. 365 days and 6 hours. Right? 365 days and 6 hours. Option number 1. Or option A. Option B. 365 and quarter days. Option D. 365.25 days. Option D. What will be option D, my friend? No. You would have taken a decision, right? I have just given you 3 options. Right. What will be this option D? All of the above. Right. Instead of all of the above, let me use this word called as none of the above. I have given you 4 choices. You tell me which is the best depiction of 1 year. 1 year. 365 days and 6 hours. 365 and quarter days. 365.25 days or none of the above. You know the concept of leap year, right? Leap year. What is this leap year? 366 days you will be here. Why do we have 366 days? Right, how many years once leap year comes in? 4 years. Right, once in 4 years you will be having one extra day that is added. Am I right? Why you add this extra day? Because somewhere I understand 6 hours, quarter days, 0.25, right? All these things you cannot have it as a separate day. Am I right? All of a sudden, see, assume that okay, somebody is saying you started with January 1st. Right, somebody is saying no, right, January 1st will start only at 6 a.m. Am I right? It means it is not acceptable, it is not practical. So what do you do? Right, all this left outs, my friend, am I right, which do not make one complete day, you just almost keep it aside. Am I right? You start collecting it. When this almost, say for example, miscellaneous part becomes a whole, right? If I have 6 hours, if you collect 6 hours, right, 4 6 hours put together, I will be having what? 24 hours. If I am just collecting 4 quarters, it will become what? 1 full. Am I right? If I am just collecting 25%, like 4 25%, it will become what? 100%. So what do? You collect the parts and make it as 4. So 4 years you collect 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours and 6 hours. And the end of 4 years, you add one extra. That is the concept of leap year. No, I know the concept of leap year. Once in 4 years it comes. Very interesting. If you ask me what is the answer here, what can be the answer? What can be the answer here, my friend? A, B, C, or D? My dear friends, here the answer is none of the above. Because if you ask me, see, this all A, B, and C, what I have written is same fact. I have written in different forms. One I have written in hours. Another I have written in fractions, another I have written in decimals, right? At least, right? That's what I have just written. Only thing is that I have written the same fact in different forms, right? But when you ask me what exactly is the time taken by Earth to complete one revolution, 1 year, time period of 1 year, that is, right, somewhere it is around 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. Right? This is the time taken by Earth to complete one revolution. 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 46 seconds. examination, normally any competitive examination you go, always you have one thing in mindset, right? You have this mindset, right? I have to select the correct option. Slightly change your mindset. Whenever you are almost having this objective type of examination, right? You call them as what? Right. 10 more minutes we have. Okay, we started very late, right? Right. Always go to the examination keeping in mind that you are going to select the best option. Am I right? What is best may not be always correct. Why? I'll tell you my friend. If today I am asking you, which is the highest peak in India? Which is the highest peak in India? Mountain peaks. Which is the highest peak in India? You heard about many peaks, right? Himalayan peaks. Right. Among them, which is the highest peak in India? This is a simple fact. No idea? K2. Somebody said K2. I am happy about it. Right. Have you heard about Kanchenjunga? Have you heard about Kanchenjunga? Now comes the question, is it K2 or Kanchenjunga? Which is the highest? K2 or Kanchenjunga, my friend, which is the highest peak? Right. I have raised a question, right? See, somebody is somewhere, if you are just finding out, just go to Google and just find it, just type it. The highest peak in Pakistan. Pakistan also says that K2 is the highest peak. India also says that K2 is the highest peak. But Ministry of Home Affairs says Kanchenjunga. Am I right? But my atlas says it is K2. And if you ask me why exactly this, almost, for example, confusion comes in, you would have heard about something called as POK, right? What is this POK? Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Am I right? This is a disputed region. So one way I understand that somewhere the administrative control of this country do not extends to POK. Right? POK, right? Emotionally I feel that it is integral part of India. Like today's my administration is not there. Like today my military's presence is not there in what? POK. Am I right? You would have heard about what? Line of control, right? What lies the other side of line of control is what? POK. This K2 is located in POK. In map, it is shown as though it is there in Indian territory, but actually it is not present in the actual Indian territory where we have our sovereignty which is extended. That's the reason there is a confusion. So what I want to communicate is very simple. See, when I go to the examination, right, if at all if examiner gives me the choice, obviously I will be selecting K2. If K2 is not there, I may go for what? Kanchenjunga. So somewhere I understand, right? The answer is decided based on the option, not just based on the question. Very important. What determines your answer is not the question. It is the option what it is. In this way, let me tell you, because every book what you have studied, right, they would have said Earth takes 365 days and 6 hours. Now what I want to communicate, if this is the 4 option given in the examination, which will be the best option? Which will be the best option? D is the best option because I know it is 3 hours, right, 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 46 seconds. Somewhere I understand 11 minutes and 14 seconds less than the percentile. Now I am giving you another option, another set of options here. I am giving you another set of options. Right. Assume that this is the 4 option I am giving you now. Right? And slightly I am just changing the facts. Right? I am asking you how long is 1 year. I know that exactly, I know that all the 4 options is given wrong. But I have to select one. That is what I call them as what? Choose the best. Any preliminary examination, any competitive examination is not choose the correct answer. It is always what? Choose the best answer. Among these 4, now which is the best? Which is the best? C is the best. Am I right? If none of the above would have been given, then none of the above becomes what? Best. So answer is situational, please give it. Okay. Right. Now, I have told you that 1 year is not 365 days and 6 hours. Slight difference is there. That's the reason, for example, what I'll do, I'll just give you a year. You have to tell me whether that year is a leap year or not. Okay, I'll just give you a year, my friend. You just try it. Right? Just see whether that year is a leap year or not. Right? What about 2020, my friend? Was it a leap year?
Yes.
Recently concluded. Right? Entire year itself is a leap year. Okay, extra year. Right. 2020 is a leap year, yes, very good. What about 2016? Was it a leap year?
Yes.
Yes, very good. What about 20 or 2004? Was it a leap year?
Yes.
The year of tsunami, was it a leap year? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, very good. What about the year of millennium, my friend? 2000, was it a leap year? Some of you would have born this year, right? Right. Some of you are sitting in the class, I believe so. Okay? Right. You are born, okay, right. Whatever it is. 2000, was it a leap year?
Yes.
Very good. Yes. What about 1904? 1904, was it a leap year? Yes or no? Why? Why? How do you find whether the given year is a leap year or not? Divided by 4. Do you want to say that this number is not divisible by 4? My dear friends, is this number divisible by 4 or not? This number is divisible by 4 or not?
Yes.
Yes, correct. This is my phone number. Right. Okay, right. This is actually divisible by 4. Whenever I talk about divisibility of 4, how do you check it? Do not go for entire number. Choose only the last two numbers. Check whether it is divisible by 4 or not. If that is the case, 1904, is it divisible by 4 or not? Yes. Is it a leap year? Yes, it is a leap year. 1904 is a leap year. If 1904 is a leap year, what about 1900? Was it a leap year? Yes or no? Yes or no? Try to work. Only two things, right? Right. Almost you tell yes, let your friends say no. At least one will be correct. Correct? Right, my friend. 1900 is a leap year or not? Yes. What about 1800? Was it a leap year? Yes. What about 1700? Was it a leap year? Yes. But I say no. They are not leap. If you ask me why these years are leap year, the reason I will say that the time taken by Earth to complete one revolution is not 365 days and 6 hours. Right? It is 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 46 seconds. It means deliberately every year we are adding some error. We know it is an error and still we are adding it. So this error will get accumulated over a period of time. So this error, I will put it this way, this will almost multiply into, say for example, once in span of 400 years, my friend. Right? This error will means almost amounts to 3 days. Only thing is that technically we will be removing these days. So I do not know how many of you solved this calendar-based problems. Actually, there are two conditions to check whether the year is a leap year or not. Condition number 1, you check it whether it is divisible by 4. The second condition is a very important condition. What is it? If the given year is century, 100, 200, 300, 400, right? Then it should be divisible by 400. If you ask me why condition number 2 came in, right? It is all because of what? The time what we see, right? It is not 365 days and 6 hours. Calculation is not needed. Even if you want to prove it mathematically, we can prove it, but that's not needed. Okay. If you ask me why these years are not a leap year, somewhere I said the fact what I have given is the reason for it. Right. Today we talked about the rotation, we talked about the revolution, we talked about the shape of the earth. Shape of the earth is very primitive. We talk about rotation, only thing what you have to remember is sidereal and synodic. Right? Sidereal, I said it is one complete rotation with respect to what? Distant star. What is synodic or solar day? One complete rotation with near star. Right? Revolution. What is revolution? Approximately we had an idea. Right? The movement of earth around the sun, you call them as what? Revolution. And if you ask me what exactly is the path of this orbit, I would say it is elliptical in nature. Right? Elliptical in nature. right? And the sun is not at the center of this ellipse, my friend. Sun is placed at some corner. So what happens? Given the case, every day the distance between sun and earth keeps on changing. Whenever sun is very close to earth, this position we call them as what? Perihelion position. We call them as what? Perihelion position. Whenever the sun is placed far away from earth, right, that position you call them as what? Aphelion position. Right? We call them as what? Perihelion and aphelion position. Right. I'll add more details in the next class. Maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow we'll be having the next class. Right. The details of it I'll be telling you in the next class. Okay. So just want to tell you, when I talk about sun, when I talk about the revolution of earth, it goes in an elliptical orbit and sun is not at the center. As the case, distance between sun and earth changes every day. When sun is very close to earth, this position you call them as what? Perihelion. On the day of perihelion, my friend, the distance between sun and earth is somewhere around 147 million kilometers. On the day of aphelion, the distance between sun and earth is about 152 million kilometers. It means between them you have a difference of how much? 5 million kilometers. Okay. So every day the distance between sun and earth changes. So next class I will give you what exactly is the average distance, what this average distance is very popularly called as, everything I will give you in the next class. Right? So somewhere I will conclude the class today. Thank you.